Hello everyone, how you doing, and welcome back to the channel. Sorry it's been a while since I've uploaded, but I want to get more back into it, and today I'm going to be posting my actual review of Star Wars Jedi Survivor that I hinted at on the community tab last week. So I'm obviously just going to be reviewing the story, the combat, how fun was the game, So without further ado, let's get into it. So the story of Star Wars Jedi Survivor mostly revolves around one thing: this planet called Tanalorr. The planet is located within the Kobo Abyss. The reason why it's so important and why Cal and the crew want to get there is because it's out of the reach of the Empire, and Cal will be able to train allies there. Bode has somewhere safe for his daughter. You know, that's why they want to get to that planet, and Dagan Gera wants to get there to train an army too. There are a lot of other subplots and things going on throughout the story, but that's the main plot line. So how good do I think the story was overall? Well, it was decent, perhaps anywhere from a 6 to a 7 out of 10. I think Cal Kestis was a bit more interesting in this game compared to the first game, same with Merrin and Seer. Not so sure about Grease, I didn't think he had that much personality, but that could just be me, as I wasn't the fondest of him in the first game anyway. Cordova was kind of just there. Okay. Dagan and Ravis were kind of interesting, being from the High Republic era, but ultimately I'm not as sure about the personalities. The point is that Cal, Merrin and Seer were the main characters who I actually felt had progressed since the first game. The new characters introduced, obviously Bode, well, we all know there was a huge twist. With Bode, he actually is a Force user and he betrays you, so that was interesting. But yeah, overall, characters, decent. The plot was also decent. That being said, like most things in Star Wars, the plot has a few holes. The first hole, and one of the biggest ones, and I'm not sure if any other people have really spotted this, that if you didn't know, Force users are supposed to be able to sense each other when in close proximity, or close enough proximity, is how Obi-Wan senses Vader on the Death Star. However, Bode is around several Force users over the course of the game: Cal, Merrin, Seer, Cordova, Dagan Gera, and yet none of them, there's a theory Dagan sensed it and decided not to say, but we'll say he didn't. None of them seem to sense Bode, even though he's standing right next to Cal and Merrin and Seer for many scenes in the game. It doesn't make sense. They never picked up on his Force presence. And now, to be fair, Jedi Survivor is far from the only piece of Star Wars media to break this logic. The 2008 Clone Wars series did it. There's an infamous scene where Obi-Wan gets jumped by two thugs who he somehow doesn't sense, standing 5 feet away. But still, it's a bit of a plot hole, unless there's some Force power I'm unaware of where Force users can cloak their Force signature, and it does say Bode was trying to distract Cal by telling him about Merrin, but I don't know, I still think this was a slightly weaker plot point, and even in the plot you have Cal ask, why couldn't we sense him? I'm just thinking, yeah, why couldn't you? The Force users are supposed to be able to sense each other, so yeah, I'm not exactly sure about that plot point. I also thought the story didn't start off brilliantly. They introduced all these characters: Coob, Liz, Gabs, Bravo, and I think there was a senator as well. Unfortunately, though, you don't see pretty much any of them after about the first 5% of the story, because they all die except for Bode. And I was just sitting there like, what? I wanted to know about Cal's history with Bravo, about what Cal and Coob and Liz have done together, how Cal met Gabs and what they did together, and Cal and Bode, even then, they seem to know each other at the start of the game, so there's obviously some backstory that we're missing out on, and I feel like it kind of started too much in the action. Again, and I'm not exactly sure it was a great idea to introduce so many characters only to kill them off at the very start of the game with basically no backstory whatsoever, basically no dialogue. It felt a little bit odd, and I honestly don't think the story started off on a great note. It got better as it went on, but I really didn't like this whole, okay, we're just going to introduce 5 characters. Okay, now we're going to exterminate all those characters for you. Yeah, I didn't particularly like that. Is this game's combat system an improvement on Fallen Orders? Well, I'm not exactly sure it is, unfortunately. The variety is definitely improved from Fallen Order. You know, you have more force powers, you can now lift, you can now slam, you can slow much more effectively than you could in Fallen Order, although it has to charge up first. You have way more lightsaber moves and stances. I mostly use the gun stance for the duration of the game. Oh, sorry, I call blasters guns. They're guns to me. But I use the gun stance and sometimes the single-bladed lightsaber just because it packs a bit more of a punch. I found the crossguard to be overly telegraphed and unwieldy. Dual wield felt very awkwardly animated, and double blade again was super telegraphed. So I mostly use the gun stance because you can shoot people from a distance before closing in and finishing them off. Especially works well for the Ravis fight. But yeah, I use the gun stance and the single blade, but you can use whatever stance you want. So the variety is definitely improved compared to Fallen Order. The difficulty is harder compared to Fallen Order, without any shadow of a doubt. The difficulty is much higher playing on Grandmaster compared to Fallen Order. In Fallen Order, you know, enemies dealt quite a lot of damage. In Survivor, they turned that up to 11. There is this monkey creature which will grab you, and if it grabs you with its right hand, yeah, you're probably getting one shot by the attack. There's even a buff version of the creature later. There's a chicken going around the map that can also one-shot you just by charging into you. I mean, it's pretty crazy. There's a Stegosaurus creature that can two-hit you pretty easily, and, you know, just general wildlife deals so much damage in this game. Compared to the first game, it's actually obscene. The punish windows aren't really any smaller than the first game. In fact, they're even slightly bigger, but it's just the damage forcing you to be careful, because if you get hit, then over half your health bar is being totally vaporized, pretty much no matter which enemy you're facing. And honestly, I would have preferred if they changed the enemies' punish windows to be smaller rather than increase the damage. It makes it feel like, or more like a fight, really, rather than just trying to be careful because you know you're going to get tanked through. Maybe you have to be careful because the enemies are actually going to flank you, do intelligent maneuvers, kind of like Inquisitor Cal Kestis in Jedi Fallen Order, but no, instead the enemies just hit really, really hard, and I think that's a slightly simplistic way to increase difficulty. That could just be me, though. I mean, I know there are some people who probably don't mind it or even like it. Now onto the boss fights, and honestly, the boss fights were easier than some of the rooms of normal enemies. You know, there was a hangar of Imperial droids and stuff, and that DT Sentry droid, oh my goodness, that was so difficult. It took me like over an hour to get through. The boss fights on Grandmaster were honestly not that bad, and I never got any stims. I finished the game with 2 stims. Yes, I'm a mad lad. I had navigation assist on. I never found another stim. So I finished the game with 2 stims. And honestly, the boss fights weren't that bad. You know, after all, the one I took the longest on was probably Ravis, and even then I think it only took me about half an hour-ish. One thing's for sure, Inquisitor Cal Kestis absolutely eclipses any story boss in Jedi Survivor. Dagon, Bode, Vader, all of them are eclipsed by Inquisitor Cal Kestis, and I must admit that I have not fought the Frog yet, so it's possible he could be harder than Cal, but for bosses you actually have to beat for the story, nah, Inquisitor Cal Kestis takes them all, easy claps. The thing that stops the combat from being clearly better than Fallen Order's is the dodge for me. If you didn't know, in Fallen Order, you could precision dodge attacks if you pressed B once just before an enemy's attack hit. This only works for melee attacks, it doesn't work for ranged enemies. But you could dodge them, and if you pressed B twice, you could do a roll, and you could chain together rolls pretty well, honestly, in Fallen Order. In Survivor, not so much. The precision evade timing is way tighter. I think I only did it like twice throughout my whole playthrough, and well, the dodge is fucked. To put it simply, the dodge is fucked. You can't just chain together dodges like you can in Fallen Order. You double dodge, there's a stun kind of animation, and Cal will kind of just stand there for a second, which leaves you so incredibly vulnerable. I mean, if you get the dash ability later on in Survivor, you can substitute that kind of for a dodge. You know, you can use it as your dodge, if you know what I mean, but it's not as good as a roll dodge in Fallen Order. In Fallen Order, you could roll out of danger like nobody's business. In Survivor, it's much harder to do that. So Yeah, I'm not especially a fan of that, if I'm honest. It makes it feel... It just doesn't make it feel as satisfying when you're fighting loads of enemies and you've got to do loads of dodging. It just feels like sometimes you're unavoidably getting hit. That being said, it obviously is possible to perfect it, since people have done no damage runs of the game, but it just feels a bit rough compared to Fallen Order, I think is the best way to put it. So I'm not necessarily a fan. That being said, the combat was still decently fun, and I'd probably give it a 6 or so out of 10. Now, the level design... In Fallen Order, I just got so bored and so lost so easily. In Survivor, I still got very lost, even with the navigation assist on. I mean, God knows where I'd be now if I didn't turn the assist on to help me get through the levels. The levels are very maze-like. I feel like it's a little too easy to get lost. It was too easy to get lost in the last game, which is why I mostly just did the combat challenges, and it's just... Yeah, I still feel like it's a little too easy to get lost in this game. You can fast travel, which makes the navigation a little bit better, but I still think it's an area for improvement, potentially. An area for improvement for the third game. I still think the levels need to be slightly less maze-like. It's still a bit easy to, not know where you're supposed to go to complete the story, and the navigation assist could be improved too. Yeah, navigation probably a 3 or 4 out of 10. I genuinely thought it was kind of poor. That being said, overall the game was decently fun, and I kind of like the perk system because it enables you to have a slightly more personalised fighting style, again because there's a greater variety. I think I've already touched on that, but yeah, I'm not sure there's too much else to say about Jedi Survivor. Is it better than the first game? Well, unfortunately, there's no combat challenges or battle grid. You can't spawn enemies in. I say that. There are combat challenges in the Force Tears, but you can't spawn in custom enemies to fight, which is a little bit of a shame, really. You could have done with that. Well, that being said, on balance, is it a better game than Fallen Order? Yes, but it's honestly a lot closer than a lot of people make it seem. And I also don't rate the game quite as highly as a lot of people do. I don't think it's a 9. I don't think it's a 9.5. I don't think it's an 8. It's probably a 6.5. If you want the best Star Wars game ever made, well, I don't think it's this, really. I mean, if you want something that's decently fun, then yeah, sure, this is going to suffice. It's pretty fun. The story's pretty decent. You can care about some of the characters well enough, and I think it was a decent effort. That being said, there's still plenty of improvement for the third game, and I think I've already said that, so I'm repeating myself at this point. Anyway, in summary, is Jedi Survivor fun? Yes. Do I feel that it's overrated? Also yes. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my content, and I promise I will try to upload more frequently. I just kind of don't know what to upload at the minute, but I'm sure I'll think of something Star Wars related I can upload, or even things other than Star Wars, if you want to see that too. But yeah, like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought about the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, goodbye.